All right, let's dive right into one of the biggest, most fascinating paradoxes at the heart of Buddhism. It's a question that seems to completely defy logic, and it has honestly puzzled people for centuries. So let's get right to it.
So here's the puzzle. On the one hand, Buddhist teachings are filled with references to the cycle of death and rebirth. But on the other hand, one of its most famous and central doctrines is no self, or anatta. So wait a minute, if there's no permanent you, no little soul that travels from one life to the next, then who or what is being reborn? It sounds like a total contradiction, doesn't it? Well, that is exactly what we are going to unpack today.
So, here's how we're going to break this down. First, we have to define what we're even talking about. Then, we'll get into the Buddhist model of the mind and this idea of a mind stream. We'll tackle what no self really means, bring it all together, and finally, look at why this ancient concept is actually incredibly relevant to our lives today. Okay, first things first, we have to get the language right. This is absolutely crucial, because the words we use here make all the difference.
You know, the first thing we got to clear up is the terminology. Most of us think of reincarnation, right? This idea of a little soul, a solid, unchanging thing that just kind of pops out of one body and into another. But that's not what Buddhism teaches. The concept is rebirth. And this isn't about a fixed thing at all. It's about a process, a constantly changing, conditioned stream of consciousness that just continues.
Okay, so if we're talking about a process of consciousness continuing, that immediately brings up another huge question, right? How can consciousness even be a thing without a physical body, without a brain? Well, this is where the Buddhist model of the mind gets really interesting. See, they don't view consciousness as just one big blob. It's layered. You've got the gross mind. That's our day-to-day thinking, our senses, and yeah, that's tied to the body, and it stops at death. But underneath that, there are deeper levels. There's a subtle mind, and then the very subtle mind, which is sometimes called the clear light of mind. And this level is considered totally independent of the body. It's what carries our karmic imprints, our deepest conditioning, forward.
And this whole continuity, they have a great name for it, the mind stream. You know, the river analogy is perfect here. You look at a river and you see a continuous thing, right? But the actual water molecules in it are different from one moment to the next. The mind stream is like that. It's this formless, constantly changing flow. It's a process, not a static object.
So, we've got this idea of a mind stream that continues. But how does that actually work? What's the mechanism that keeps it flowing from one life to the next? That's what we're digging into now.
And this brings us to probably the most classic, most helpful analogy you'll ever hear for Buddhist rebirth. It's like using the flame from one candle to light the next one.
Think about it. Is the flame on that new candle the exact same flame as the one on the first? Not really. Its fuel source is different, its position is different. But is it a totally separate, unrelated flame? No way. It exists because of the first one. It's a continuum. There's a direct causal link, even though no physical thing jumped from one wick to the other, just energy.
So that's the multi-million-dollar question, isn't it? If the mind stream is the flame and our karma shapes the quality of that flame, what's the fuel? What's the thing that keeps that flame going and allows it to light the next candle, the next life?
And the answer, coming straight from the Buddha himself, is craving. He said that the process is craving sustained. It's our attachment, our thirst for experience, our deep-seated desire to exist. That's the very energy that propels the mind stream forward and into a new birth.
All right, so we've got a handle on the rebirth side of the paradox. Now we have to tackle the other half and really deconstruct what on earth no self actually means. Now, this is probably the biggest misunderstanding in all of Buddhism. No self does not mean you don't exist. It's not nihilism. It's not saying, poof, you're nothing. What it is saying is that there is no permanent, independent, unchanging little core inside of you that you can point to and say, that's the real me. The self we experience every day is a useful convention, a label we put on a constantly changing collection of thoughts, feelings, and physical parts, but it's not some ultimate solid reality. And I absolutely love this quote. It's a little bit funny, but it's just so profound and spot on. When Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche was asked what continues from one life to the next, he said, your bad habits. It's brilliant, right? He's saying it's not a soul that continues. It's our patterns, our tendencies, our karmic conditioning. That's what provides the continuity.
Okay, so let's put the two pieces of this giant puzzle together. We have rebirth, but we have no self. So how do they fit? Well, it's all about understanding it as a continuous causal chain.
Here's another fantastic way to picture it.
Imagine a really long line of dominoes. You just nudge the first one and boom, 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 all the way down the line. The very last one falls over. Now, did any physical part of the first domino travel all the way to the end and knock over the last one? Of course not. What traveled was the energy, a pure, unbroken chain of cause and effect. That's the mind stream.
And the great philosopher Nagarjuna really nailed this idea centuries ago. He said the wise understand that nothing has transferred in the way we'd think of a soul transferring. Instead, all beings are simply the results of previous causes and at the same time, the causes for future results. It's just a dynamic, ongoing flow.
Now, it's worth noting that not every Buddhist tradition explains the nuts and bolts of this in the exact same way. In Theravada Buddhism, for instance, the focus is really on that craving as the direct link. But if you look at many Mahayana and Tibetan traditions, they describe this detailed intermediate state called the bardo, where a kind of mental body carries the consciousness. The end result is the same, but the play-by-play of the journey can look a little different.
Okay, I know that was a lot of pretty deep, abstract philosophy, so who cares? Why does any of this actually matter for us right here, right now? Well, this is where it all connects back to our actual lives. And this quote from the great master Shantideva just gets right to the heart of it. The central claim here is that our deep-seated belief in a solid, separate, permanent me is the root cause of so much of our suffering. It's what fuels our greed, our anger, our fear, and our conflicts with each other.
So what do we walk away with? Well, first, when you see rebirth as a process, it makes you realize that your actions, your intentions, they really matter. They are literally creating your future. And second, getting this no-self idea, it's not just some intellectual mind game. It's seen as the key to unlocking real freedom from all the suffering caused by a grasping ego. And maybe most importantly, it shifts your entire perspective from seeing yourself as a static thing, a noun, to seeing yourself as an active process, a verb. You're not just being, you are always, always becoming.
So I'll just leave you with this to chew on. If you aren't some fixed, solid thing, but you're actually this continuous process of cause and effect, then what are you going to set in motion today? What kind of causes do you want to create? It's something to think about. Thanks so much for joining me for this one.